Hybrid Learning Environment in Teaching Chemistry, a Perspective of Pedagogical Innovation in the Era of Mobile Learning. My name is Eliette. I am a professor of chemistry in the Public Network of Education of Uberlândia in Brazil and a student of the Professional Master in Science and Mathematics of the Federal University of Uberlândia with research in the area of technology in education. This is my advisor professor, Dr. Arlindo José de Souza Jr., with a doctorate in education from the State University of Campinas and assistant professor of the Federal University of Uberlândia. The personal, social, and professional motivation that led me to this research are the lack of laboratories in most public schools in Uberlândia, overcrowded rooms, double working day, high expenses with copies, reduction of the workload to 80 hours per week, and discomfort for the traditional base class model. Nowadays, students are increasingly dynamic and interconnected, favoring the adoption of environments that favor learning and encourage social relations. Also, I wanted to prepare myself and others for the new and growing challenges of teaching. So I looked for a way to change the pedagogical practice using instrument-mediating activities inside and outside the classroom, online learning environment, and the convergence between traditional classroom and virtual environment, resulting in the blended learning. According to Sacol, Schlemmer, and Barbosa, mobile technology represents an innovation in pedagogical practices, expanding the learning space-times, contributing to the modification of paradigms in education, which increasingly tend to include online learning, hybrid, and collaborative learning. The principal objectives of this research are to rethink the teaching process, to seek to use the student's own technological device, to take advantage of a learning environment, to develop a teaching that does not happen only in the physical space of the classroom, but in the multiple spaces of daily life. To analyze students' perceptions about the integrated use of new technologies, to evaluate the changes in the learning process from the migration of the printed contents to the digital ones using a multi-platform, to experiment the interactive simulations, open digital education resources, and their potentialities. There is in Brazil an institute called IDEB that analyzes the Index of Development of Basic Education. According to it, in recent years we are below the expected average. Therefore, are the traditional patterns of education in Brazil, whose teacher is the center of knowledge, really not fit into contemporaneity? Through this data, the research of qualitative and participatory nature was attended by 240 students who, through questionnaires and debates, contributed their positions on the possibility of integrating mobiles using the bring your own device technique and the hybrid teaching in the teaching process learning. This research was divided into 4 phases, in which Phase 1 contains the institutional and methodological mounting, Phase 2 the preliminary and provisional diagnosis, Phase 3 the critical analysis of priority problems, and Phase 4 the appreciation of the research plan. In the first phase, we set the schedule, delimited the local end participants, outlined the research objectives, and organized the research method. And in the end, we had the conception of the research proposal. In the second phase, we came to know the digital culture of the research participants, and we identified the social, economic, and technological structure of the participants. In the second phase, we investigated the age group or generation of the participant, the percentage of students who had smartphones, the device operating system, the type of internet connection, device and internet access locations, most used applications, and ability to operate devices. In this slide, you can see some results of the questionnaire that was applied to the participants. In the first graphic, you can see the age range of the research participants, and as you can see, the majority of them were above 15 years old, which means that they belong to Z generation. Another graphic that you can see is about the operating system of participants' devices, showing that the majority of them use Android. The last graphic shows the type of internet connection, and because of 4% of them had any internet connection, we formed groups among them so that every group had at least one person with internet connection. The first and second graphics are about device and internet access locations, showing that the majority of them use the internet on their smartphones and laptop or computers. The last graphic is about the ability of participants to operate the MD and computer, showing that most students has more ability to use their smartphones in comparison to other devices. The most used apps are the WhatsApp in the first place, and in the second comes the YouTube. The data indicate that the participants use their mobiles in search of a direct connection between their personal and social life without a practical relation with the school content. In relation to YouTube, they use it to search for videotapes. This shows that this generation wants to learn without frontiers of time and space, in addition to recommending communication with quick answers. In 2014, Google excelled in the educational field, launching the G Suite for Education. Among the various suites for education presented, the highlight was the Google Classroom, a tool that promotes creativity and collaboration. So in the first moment of the third phase occurred the acquisition and presentation of learning environment, Google Classroom, and its functionalities. In the second moment, we identified and resolved the problems concerning the usage of Google Classroom, and in the third moment, we defined and organized the activities with the use of simulators, virtual laboratories, and videos aimed at reasoning, research, and learning. In the presentation of Google Classroom to the students, we showed them how to download and access the documents, how to carry out online activities, the negative and positive points of the app, the skills and competencies that could be acquired with the usage of this app, the feelings that the learning difficulties and solution of these caused when signing in, how to do the password reset, how the text editor worked, how to do the discontinuation of the usage of the application, and the contributions for learning that Google Classroom could bring. Some problems found in the download and execution and first login in the app were insufficient memory in the smartphones of the students, the account access, the password reset, the connection, the approval of the device by the administrator, and the presentation of the user license agreement. Concerning the editing, return, and interaction during the activity, some problems found were in the text editor, the print resolutions, the insecurity caused by the activity, the addition especially of formulas, and the interaction between teacher-student and student-student. Some activities that we've done are a video conference with Eduardo Takahashi about radioactivity, in which they were asked to do a video about it that can be found in the first link. After that, we made an investigative activity in which they were asked to do a video or a comic book or a podcast about the plantation of hydrangeas. And another activity that they made was a video or a comic book or a podcast about vitamin C. Another activity that we made about organization and representation of knowledge was a conceptual map about inorganic functions that can be found in these 3 links. The last activity that we made was without contextualization, with the objective to verify the content that was acquired. It was a mechanic activity in which they had to answer a questionnaire that can be found in these 2 links. Through the practices developed with the activities, it is concluded that the learning can contact the teacher in the classroom and at the same time with a colleague in the social networks or through shared activities, seeking support in the various ways of interacting, activating the cycle of actions, defining their learning spiral, and finally building their knowledge. The way that the teacher mediates between the participant and the technological apparatus can also activate the cycle of actions and lead to the learning by discovery. That is, the main content to be learned must be discovered by the student, increasing the responsibility to learn by itself. Finally, in the fourth phase, we did the implementation of the action plan. It is known that this research does not end in the fourth phase. It is up to the teacher who wants to use this technological tool to adapt all the phases presented. Only then this technological integration will influence the development of the multiple competences necessary for apprentices in the context of contemporary society. And to conclude this presentation, some deployment of the participants. Student A, it was so much easier to solve the exercises and return them to the teacher, saving time and wariness of student and teacher. Student B, you can use it anywhere. Whenever the teacher posts a new task, comes a notification. It's easier to see notes. You can cancel the submission of the work before the delivery date. Student C, it's a good idea, but I prefer the old way of testing and evaluation on paper. Student D, when the teacher, Eliette, said the assignments, they do not alert me that they have arrived. I always know I have a job because my colleagues tell me. Student E, the proposal is really very interesting, but we need to establish a standard for use for the whole school, which would really make it a practical tool. They show us that despite having problems, the tool was well accepted by most students, showing us that there has to be a change in the way of teaching. Were reference for the research? They are still references. Finalizing the references. And to finish, thank you all for the attention.